All right. Well, welcome back to the Sunday's Coming podcast. I'm here, as always, with Kaleb with a C.
That is me.
Yep. And I'm super, super excited to be joined by my friend Tony Sorrentino on the podcast today.
Good to
welcome.
see you guys.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being here. And you are here from the sunny city of Atlanta.
You know, mostly cloudy city of Atlanta, I learned. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia about a year ago and then found out that they call it the Seattle of the South.
I never knew that.
Yeah, well, I think they kind of keep it under wraps so people move there.
Wow.
And then you're there and you're in. But it's beautiful.
Okay.
It's fall in Atlanta. The leaves are starting to change just a little bit.
Wow.
The heat has broken, so it's good.
Yeah. When I think of Atlanta, I think of hot and humid. Is that accurate?
Hot, dude.
It is very hot. It's very humid. I started training for a marathon this summer. And I started doing my runs earlier and earlier and earlier every morning. And I'm like, the sun is not even out.
Yes.
It's 90 plus degrees and literally 95% humidity at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, how do I do this? How does this work?
Sounds terrible.
So it's brutal.
Terrible.
It's brutal.
As a longtime Chicago person, like, how are you feeling like the adjustments going to Atlanta?
Yeah, I really like Atlanta. Chicago will always have my heart. It will always be home kind of on that fundamental level. But I like Atlanta a lot. It's a very neighborhood-oriented city. It's a very green city. People like to have a good time. People are friendly and warm. People are active. It's good. Nice. I enjoy it.
If you're listening from Atlanta, sounds like
Great food.
Shout out to you.
Totally.
Lots of great food.
Love that.
Lots of great food in Atlanta. So I was in Los Angeles for a few years between Chicago and Atlanta. And as food cities go, I mean, Chicago's a phenomenal food city. Yeah. Atlanta's a phenomenal food city. And no shade on Los Angeles, but not quite, in my opinion, not quite at that level. So
interesting.
It's nice being in a good
Probably
food
the
city
weather
again.
was the thing it had going for it over Chicago and Atlanta, would you say?
I mean, the weather in Los Angeles is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Training for a marathon there would probably have been a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was out there about a month ago and I got to get a long run in and I ran from Newport Beach to Huntington Beach and back, did about a 9-mile run. And I'm like, this is just surreal. Like what in the world? As a Midwest kid, me running on the ocean, like just mind-blowing and cool. But
I think it's so beautiful when I run in like my little forest preserve. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, what am I talking about?
In the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
right.
dude. Okay, well, we're gonna kind of hear your story, and I'm excited to dig into a lot of interesting topics in the conversation. But real quick, just kind of set context. What do you do? What's your sort of professional place in the world right now? And then we'll kind of rewind from there and talk more.
That's great. So currently I lead a creative agency called Ox for Good. We're based in Chicago, but have team members all over the world and clients all over the world. And we focus on multiplying good through creativity. So we serve ministry clients, nonprofit clients, for-profits who are trying to make a difference, and create brands and films and campaigns that help them to get people in the game around the causes and the initiatives that they're running. So I've been in the CEO seat for the last about 2 years, coming up on 2 years. I've been with the company for coming up on 9 years. And the founders, Jen and Jesse Oxford, and I have been friends for, almost 20 years, which is wild to say. But met through all three of us having worked at Willow Creek in Chicago. Yeah. And so that was kind of the previous 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
That's kind of led me up to today.
Well, maybe we talk a little bit through that, because when you say creative agency that, multiplies good through creativity, like that's a lot of expressions to what that can mean.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what does one have to do in their like kind of journey of experiences and roles to help, that kind of mission be successful? So maybe like talk through what that looked like for you in the previous season of life before you started working for Ox.
Yeah, that's good. So I came to work at Willow through my love of music. So still a musician, singer-songwriter, love to create music. Currently that's more of a hobby and a passion than vocation. But when I was 20 years old, I had taken a pause on college. I was working at a store in the mall in suburban Chicago.
Which store?
It was called Ruehl. Ruehl.
Okay.
It was like the high-end version of Abercrombie. It was owned by Abercrombie's brands. It was, if you ever went into one, it kind of looked like a haunted house. Okay. It was meant to look like a New York brownstone, but everyone walked by and was like, "Wait, is that like a Halloween store? What's going on in there?"
That's so funny.
So I was the guy that stood at the front of the store, and I had to say to customers as they walked in, "Hey, welcome to Ruehl. Have you seen how cool our jeans fit?" which is like, what is that sentence?
That's a very specific like line you were given to say.
Exactly.
Really?
Wow.
Welcome to
gosh, that's
Rule.
so
Have you
funny.
seen how cool our jeans fit? Which is like, anyway.
And that was your
so-
first experience in sales.
I mean, actually,
Yeah.
it actually was. It actually was.
And does this store also have the people that have no shirt on standing outside?
I
the
was
store?
not one of those people,
Okay,
but they
yeah.
did it at times. Happen.
When you think about that though, like,
I honestly
mean, it's
don't
just
even
like-
know about that.
Are you serious?
No, but
yes, dude.
I guess we don't shop at the right
like,
places.
Abercrombie, like,
That-
you walk through the mall and there'd be two dudes with their shirt off, standing in jeans, like welcoming you into
Totally.
the store. I'm like, I don't want to go in the store because you're
Right.
standing
So
there.
you're actually scaring me away.
Right.
100%.
Wow. I didn't know that.
100%.
crazy.
Yeah, that was a whole other, whole other thing. But I actually
hilarious.
worked there for a pretty short period of time, 4 or 5 months. But during that time, I met a coworker, and she went to Willow Creek. And at the time, I'd grown up in the church, but had gone away from the church for a bunch of reasons, and was working at this store in the mall. And she just took an interest and was like, "Hey, I go to this church called Willow. Do you go to church anywhere?" And I mean, just kind of like classic evangelism,
Yeah, that's
basically. And through that, I shared some of my music with her. She shared some of it with some of the music directors at Willow. And the first service of 2007, we're going way back now, I sound like a very old man, but came to my first service at Willow. And 6 months later, they invited me to join the staff. And again, I had grown up in the church, and so my move away from the church was really more about relationships with people and just feeling kind of pushed to the outs. But it was kind of this coming together of like reconnecting in my relationship with God, reconnecting into a new community of people. And then that was the next 10 years of my life working at Willow. And so while I was working at Willow, I started out leading worship and kind of just like, we just need you to be the guy, stand on the stage, wear the skinny jeans, play the guitar, and like just
Skinny jeans
fit
from-
into
from
this,
Rule,
this
maybe.
little, yeah,
that's
totally.
so cool.
I have a hookup on this.
Totally. And over time, I mean, again, I was a 20-year-old and still in college, finished my college degree. And then probably about 25, started thinking about like, is this like a first job, or is this like the forever thing? And I think that at the time I assumed it was like the forever thing. Willow was having a huge impact, and it felt like that I was put in this position that was way bigger than me and way beyond me. And in a lot of ways I was. But I think I assumed that meant like, cool, so this is the thing I'll do forever until I retire someday, like old and gray and still wearing my skinny jeans.
Yeah.
And probably about 25, 26, I was first exposed to strategic planning and facilitation. I was in a leadership meeting and just had no context of that. There was a guy standing in front of the room leading this team that I was a part of, and I was like, wait, what is this? What is he doing? Like, this just feels like magic to me. And I kind of had two contradictory thoughts at the same time, one of which was that this feels like magic. It feels unbelievable. And then the second thought, which is like, and I have really no reason to back this up, but I sort of feel like maybe I could do that. Like there was something about what he was doing that felt like, wait, I feel like I've kind of always done this, and I would need training and development, but there was something that like clicked. And so just kind of on my own to the side of like being Mr. Worship Leader guy, I started exploring what that would look like. Started reading books, started talking to other people who did it. I facilitated a strategic planning session for a friend of mine who was primarily like an event photographer and wanted to move into a different space. And like, I don't know what I'm doing, but you don't know what you're doing either. So maybe we can kind of come together. And I'm sure I made like a ton of mistakes in that process. But then through that, kind of gradually realized like, oh, I have a heartbeat for facilitating people to help figure out what their next steps are. And the dots connected. I had a friend named Eric. I sat down with him over dinner one day, and I was just like wrestling with this. Like, I'm like worship leader guy, but then I'm like strategic planning guy, and they just don't seem to go together. And he's like, well, Tony, at your heart, you're a strategist and a facilitator. And so you stand in front of a room and you facilitate a strategic plan, and you're helping people get clear on where they are and what their next steps are, but you're actually doing that as a worship leader too. Like you use questions to guide people and invite them to take their next step in their relationship with Jesus. And so that kind of dot connecting made me realize like, okay, I need to continue down this path. It's not at odds with who I am. It's actually a continuation of who God's made me to be. So that's what led me to then join the team at Ox. Again, like jumped into a new space, didn't know hardly anything about the creative industry or branding or how that worked, but just kind of gradually put one foot in front of the other. And so I think that the overlap or the big tension point for me that I had to wrestle with was like, okay, I started in ministry, felt like I was given this huge blessing, this huge opportunity. Is stepping outside of that sort of forfeiting that? Am I like rejecting the gift that I've been given? And I think that conversation with Eric was such a turning point because it helped me realize like, oh no, this is like a continuation of who God's made me to be.
Yeah. So. I think a lot of people, as they're getting ready, I mean, it was the case for me, I think it was the case for you, leaving ministry, questioning a lot of those things, you know, whether it's the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, or it's, you know, feeling like, hey, God has given me some of these other gifts that feel different than what I've, you know, made my career as for the last 10 years. Is this the right call? Is this,
for sure,
am I jumping into something that is not, you know, God driven, or is this something that I'm just wanting, you know, all those things. But it's, that's interesting, man.
How was it navigating that transition from that, you know, ministry context to the, we'll call it the marketplace context? Like what were some of the things that you wrestled through or worked through, or the things that surprised you, or like were challenges in that moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first thing I would say is that my hope was not to move specifically from ministry to marketplace. Like that wasn't the driving. It wasn't like, I got to get out of ministry.
No.
And actually had conversations. I don't say this to throw any shade on anybody. It's not that. It's just the way it worked out, and it makes sense in hindsight. But my hope was to pursue and explore that strategic gifting within the construct of Willow, or within the construct of ministry. I think over time I began to realize like that probably didn't ultimately make sense. And so then it became, okay, so if God's gifted me in this way, and the invitation is to take this next step, then maybe that means I have to be open to, is that in ministry or is it in marketplace? It was interesting because I think for me, it felt more integrated or contiguous. Like I didn't experience this big internal struggle, especially after that conversation. I think I felt some of it, had that conversation, had a few others, and it was like, okay, this makes sense to me. What's interesting is like people around me in my life that went, wait, like, we see you as this one thing. And like, you're not going to be that thing anymore. I had a family member who, when I let them know what I was going to be doing at Ox, said like, well, I'm glad that you're still going to be doing some kind of ministry. But there was sort of this mental block of like, oh, this is like somehow a lesser than thing. And I didn't feel it. It was. I didn't see it that way. But it was interesting kind of experiencing how other people perceived it and interpreted it.
Well, let's dig into that more, because as you're describing that, I think about how many people, whatever their context, sort of get locked into a role. Like we see you as this. Your skill set is in this lane. Your you know, abilities align in this direction.
100%.
Or even like from a very like practical standpoint, like our organization needs you to do this thing. So like don't get distracted because you have to do this thing. Like how was that navigation, even in, because as I'm saying this, I'm thinking like there's a personal aspect of that, of you see yourself as a certain thing, right? So yeah, I don't know, maybe reflect on that a little bit.
Well, I think that's why, like, as I tell the story, I kind of make the joke about the guy wearing the skinny jeans, but there is sort of like, I won't call it a stereotype, it's almost an archetype that you're playing. And I think especially in larger church contexts, there is sort of a mental need to form shortcuts for everything, including people. Like I kind of need a box to put you in. I need a label to put on you that just helps my brain. So I don't have any judgment for that. It's like inevitable. And I think, you know, as I've continued to grow in my own leadership, I realize like I do that too. And we all do that to a certain extent. But it can become really problematic because labels inherently, boxes inherently cut things off that don't neatly fit with that label. And, you know, it was such a gift for, again, my friend Eric to go like, hey, I see how all these things actually do fit in the you that you are, but it's not defined by you being skinny jeans wearing musician artist guy. It's you're a facilitator and a strategist. And similarly, I mean, to flip it a little bit, I was that very much or could have been seen very much that way to Jesse and to Jen. But Jesse one of the things I would say about him is he just has this genuinely supernatural gift to see the thing that a person or a project or a brand can become. He just like sees what it wants to be, the potential in it. And so he sat across from me at a table grabbing a cup of coffee in 2016, and he went, hey, I think I see like where you're going and what you could be. And I know you don't have agency experience, and I know you're a skinny jeans wearing guy, but I see the you are beyond that. And so I think what that's highlighted for me is, I think it challenges me to not become over-reliant on the labels or the shortcuts, and to even think about the people that I'm leading on my team or the clients that we're serving, and not sort of just assume at face value, like, this is who you are today, so this is who you are fundamentally, but instead to try to challenge myself to be curious about, like, who are you becoming?
Yeah.
And I, not to over spiritualize, but I do believe that that's how God sees us. He's looking at us and going like, hey, I see who you're becoming and who I'm developing you into being.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think too of, the people listening to this conversation that are in a church context where they are entrusted with a community, a team, volunteers, a staff, whatever.
Spot on.
And like are invited to have that same kind of vision.
Yeah.
If you're in leadership, like seeing where you are now and then seeing where things could progress, and then how do you chart a path to get there, right?
100%.
So I'd be curious, like as you experienced that in your life, what were the things or the practices or the postures that maybe it was Jesse or other leaders in your life did to create space for you to like feel like you could do feel like you could try new things, and two, create space for you to try things like within an organization? Because at Ox, for example, you started early on in the company. I mean, I don't know how long it was going on before you started, but 10 years is a long time to have been there. So you were employee number.
Yeah, that's a good. I don't know the answer. I know I started in 2017, and we're this year celebrating our 15th year. So I started about 7 years in, give or take, and I started. I mean, I think maybe there are a couple of lessons, and this will be messy. I haven't thought through that lens. It's such a great question, but I think the couple things that Jesse did really well in this is he saw potential and he was willing to invest in it. But the job that he gave me, I mean, I was definitely like the most junior person coming in. So it wasn't, hey, I believe you have the potential to do this, so I'm going to ask you and trust you to do it straight out of the gate. It was, I believe you have the potential to do this, so let me put you on a path that you can prove yourself and develop and grow. So when I started, I was our first account executive. We'd never had an account executive before. And for those who don't know the kind of agency world, the account executive's job, my job was schedule meetings with the clients, make sure that the clients understand what's going on, help make sure that the dots are getting, it was kind of a hybrid account executive and some project management at the very start. Help make sure that the clients know what's going on with the team and the team knows what's going on with the clients, and just be this go-between, which is a really important job, but it's very much a supporting job to other things. And the gift of that was, especially coming in, I had the opportunity to then learn from all the other folks that were around me. And the things that I didn't know weren't a liability. That, I had a ton of opportunity to learn and grow and develop. So I think, he gave me an opportunity to take a shot, and he was willing to let me screw it up and fail. And I'm thinking about several things come to my mind right away. And I go like, oh, yep, that was an expensive lesson I just learned. And it was expensive for me, but it was expensive for the company too. But again, I think he was willing to kind of take the long view. And I like to think that it was a wise investment. And something else I'd say about Jesse and his leadership and about the culture of Ox is like making an investment is taking a risk, and not every risk pans out. Not every risk pays off. But if you're never willing to take any of those risks, you never get any of the benefit, any of the reward. And so I think my experience in ministry context is sometimes we're so risk averse, whether that's, the musician that we trust to lead a song or someone that we entrust to speak, or a small group leader that we're so risk averse that we don't give people the opportunity to try and fail. Or if they're not performing at 100% right out of the gate, we pull them, as opposed to going like, cool, how do I mean, it's the model of discipleship. How do I develop you through this? How do I coach you through this? How can this be a moment in who you're becoming? Yeah.
That's awesome. I as you were talking about that, and even just the way that Jesse interacted with you early on, years ago, I was a part of a church context that they use the word prophetic a lot. And I didn't know what to think of that word and what that actually meant. And there was a great pastor who, they would disciple our staff quite a bit to go, hey, our job is to help other people, whether it's people on your team, other people that are on staff at the church, or volunteers, lay leaders, whatever that looks like, to go, hey, if you feel like you see these things in somebody, a volunteer, call those things out, because God uses us to call those things out in other people, to go, hey, I think you're a facilitator. I feel like you could do this. And you're like, what does that even mean? And I think of that from, myself 10 years ago, and I go, man, these people that would say these things, and I go, what the heck does that even mean?
Totally.
Now looking back on, oh man, they saw some things in me
so
that
good, man.
God pointed out to them, and like just the importance of being able to share that with those people when you feel that tug on your heart to go, hey man, like go encourage this person to, whether it's continue doing this thing or to go, I see you doing more in that. And then for a guy like that to be able to, bring you along the journey.
Absolutely.
And go, hey, we're putting you in a role, but they're like, you described it as he put you on a path to get to this other place, which is so important. And I do think that in church context, like you're saying, like we tend to pull the plug maybe faster than we should sometimes on a risky hire or a volunteer coming up, whatever that looks like, and the fear of failure. And allowing them to fail, regardless of how expensive that failure is for the person or the organization. Like, man, how important is that for all of us to get to where we are today, or where we feel like God's calling us or bringing us into, in the next season.
Totally. And I mean, the flip side of that is we've definitely, in every organization I've been a part of, there have been times when, again, like I said, you take a risk and it doesn't pan out. And then you have to sometimes have the courage to go, we were going down a path, but it's not going to work out. Yeah. And those are tough conversations too. But yeah, I think my experience is that we tend to over-index towards the cautious side of that. And there's a lot of potential in ministry, kingdom potential, that I think gets missed because of exactly that. I love what you said about, calling out what you see in someone. What comes up for me as I hear you say that is just how often in Scripture God gives someone a new name. Mm-hmm. And it's striking me like, he gave them a new name, at least in part, because he wanted them to understand what he saw in them and who he saw them to be. And a name is language that helps to define a reality. And it's so powerful to have someone, again, like my friend Eric gave me a new name. He said, hey, you're not just worship leader guy, you're strategist. I call you facilitator. And I do think it was prophetic in that moment to give me a new understanding of myself and just a little bit of a glimpse of like, oh, hey, this is actually who God made me to be and what he wants to do with me. And it's such a gift to people when you can do that.
And I think too, like it makes me think how much impact something that like you as the person bringing that word of encouragement or observation can feel like it's not that big of a deal.
Totally.
But the person receiving it might be in a season where that was a pivotal moment where they like re-envisioned themselves or had an encouragement when they were feeling a lot of doubt or something like that. So I guess the takeaway of that is like be very generous with those, because it's only upside. I feel like I don't think anyone ever complained about being encouraged.
Yeah, and you don't know what that person is going through in their own life. You know, people are amazing at putting on a amazing face in front of how they're doing or what they're processing in their role. And a ministry context doesn't matter where it is. But yeah, that's good, man.
So I think we'll get to a kind of unpacking a little bit more of like, excuse me, what you guys are doing today as an organization and what we can learn from that. But another thing that I'm kind of thinking about as you describe your journey that I think is something that a lot of, healthy growing teams will experience, whatever their context, is like a seasoned leader handing off the baton to another leader and still being around in some capacity. And how do you hand over that responsibility and that sort of weight within the organization in a healthy way and like find the balance of contribution in a new, different role that, you know, the founder's only ever been the founder. So being the whatever the founder is now is the first time you've ever had that. So what does that look like? So how did that go for you guys and what did you do?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think I would say a couple things about it. I think it is from where I sit, and again, it's always like, if you really want to know how healthy it is, ask our team and get their honest perspective. But my sense of it is that it's been one of the healthiest leadership transitions that I've seen. And really complex, really messy, really hard, but in the way that like growth and transition I always think about nature, like nature is a good model for like what does health look like in a lot of ways. transition in nature is often those things: messy, hard, complex, but not like funky. And any moments of like marginal funk that have crept up in it, I think we've just dealt with really quickly, and I think that's what's kept it healthy. So I think there are a couple things that I think are like transferable in it. One is Jesse had me fly to Chicago in October of 2022. We made the leadership transition in January of 2024. And he had been processing the need to make this transition, and then who would that transition be to for years before he brought it to me.
Sure.
So this wasn't hey, I'm carrying this weight and my arms are pretty tired and I've got to drop this thing. So like, who's around? Let me pitch it to you. It was, I'm carrying this thing and I could go another 10 years, another 20 years, but I want to think about the long-term future of this thing. Jesse's vision, and it's become our vision, is that Ox would be a 100-year organization, which isn't about us. It's about saying, you think about like trees in nature, and the ones that last are the healthy ones. And so it's really a way of saying, not we want to be so big and important. It's a way of saying we want to be healthy enough, sustainable enough, do things in a repeatable enough way that we could someday celebrate our 100th anniversary, our 100th birthday. And so as part of that, he's done a decent bit of research on what helps organizations to survive and to thrive for that long. One of the things is really healthy leadership transitions. And so that was kind of a priority for him as he went into it. The other thing that I think really helped, maybe more than anything else, is we had really clear, really honest conversations about what does this actually mean. So like worked with a coach on, okay, so I'm going to be the CEO. You're stepping Jesse into this role. Jen, you're going to step into this role. But functionally, like who has what authority to do what things? I introduced the language of authority versus awareness. And I think that honestly, like we've started rippling that out to our team in a wider way, just getting really clear on who has what authority on what things versus who just needs awareness of what things. And basically went down the list of every potential complication or trouble spot, spent hours going over it. And it felt pretty tedious on the upfront. But we've come back to that list over and over again as things come up, and just, we're different people. We see things differently, and being really clear on like, hey, at the end of the day, whose call is this to make? And if it's yours, I'm going to submit to your authority as owners. If it's mine, I'm going to ask you to trust me with the authority you've entrusted to me. And I think that kind of clarity has just served us so well. It's the kind of conversations that I think a lot of teams don't want to have, but I feel super grateful that we had it. And then I think the last thing I would say is, again, I said this earlier, nearly 20 years of friendship, I think really creates the right foundation and creates a lot of grace just relationally between us, where when it hasn't gone well, we need to talk about it, but there's a level of trust, like, hey, I know you're for me and I know that we're in this together. Again, I said the clarity maybe makes all the difference. I think it competes with just the friendship, I think has made all the difference. So
that's good.
It's, there's so much relational equity, I think, that's made when you have a relationship like that doesn't even start while you're working together, and that you guys were able to do that even outside of the context that you're at right now. And I also think just the way you're describing, hey, we're going to walk through every single one of these, who's going to make that call. Because I think sometimes for many organizations, this could be in a senior leadership transition or whatever that looks like. They go, here's the baton. I'm going to stay on as a teaching pastor every 6 weeks or whatever. And just what that can do to the staff to provide clarity of like, whose call is this? Because this guy's telling me something.
Oh my gosh.
And he's the OG guy or the owner or the original senior pastor. And here's the new guy. Who do I listen to? And just how messy that can become within the organization if you don't have those hard conversations up front to go, hey, is everybody on the same page? This is what's going to happen if we run into this scenario or this scenario, and who's going to make that call. I think that's so healthy.
100%.
That you guys are able to do that in a way.
Well, one of the things that you said a minute ago, Tony, that I think is just so important to highlight as you were describing Jesse's sort of vision to transition leadership, was that it wasn't like he was carrying this weight and he was just like frantic to drop it. Like I just have to do something right away. And the main driver here is speed or pressure release or something like that.
Yeah.
Like as leaders in whatever the context is, having the foresight to like not allow things to get to that place before you start thinking about the transition or what it looks like to create the future iteration of your team rather than letting it happen to you. I think is just such good advice and like modeled really well in that case where in church ministry context specifically, like think of the name of this podcast, Sunday's Coming. Like it's so easy to just be in the grind of like the routine and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's come up a number of times in conversations around this table of like pausing and being able to kind of take a 30,000 foot view for a minute and look at the future and like, what do I want it to be like? And what is the experience I want to have? And how do I, kind of like you were saying about your own role of like seeing a future for yourself beyond what you're doing now.
Definitely.
How many people have taken the time to even imagine what that might be for them?
Totally.
So as leaders, as ministry people, like having sort of self-awareness to create that space, and if that looks like crafting a leadership transition or creating a healthier set of rhythms and boundaries or whatever, I think the learnings gleaned from that is only ever a positive thing.
I couldn't agree more. And I think what that brings up for me is, and this is going to get like mildly morbid for a second, but I think that we really wrestle with acknowledging that whatever we're doing has not only a beginning, but has an end. Mm-hmm. And it gets morbid to a certain extent because that's true of our lives as a whole. And that's a reality that I think most of us, myself included, we don't want to deal with that regardless of what we believe, our convictions. There's still something in us, I think, as humans that goes, I don't really want to think about that. And then I think it applies to a role of leadership. And the reality that I think I use that weight metaphor because I used to talk to our worship teams at Willow about the idea that this isn't ours at the end of the day. We're just carrying a thing. We're stewarding a thing that we've been entrusted with for a little while. And it's deeply beautiful, and what a joy. And also it is heavy and it's fragile. And so it's been placed in our hands for this little while. And at the end, our hope is that we place it in the hands of someone else effectively. But I think that my experience is that especially for those of us who have public roles of leadership, we like to think, you were talking about identity earlier, we like to think that that is my identity. And if that's my identity, then losing it is like tantamount to losing my life. And I don't want to think about that. I don't want to go there. And I think that it creates huge blind spots in leadership. I think if we flip it to, I'm actually just stewarding this role, this thing that's not mine, it allows me to then think about, okay, so if at some point I'm going to hand it off to someone else, and that's not a bad thing, it's not a sign of failure, it's actually a sign of wisdom and success, then how do I want to do that, and what should I be preparing to do now? But again, I think so often we're so focused on, to your point, Sunday's coming and the present is coming and the deadlines I have now, and also focused on like, what do I want my mark to be? Which again is the shadow side of leadership that I think, whether we want to face it or not, we all have to contend with. But yeah, again, I think if we can get a view of, no, I'm going to hand this off to someone else. I will not be the CEO of Ox Creative forever. I will not be that. I was not a worship leader at Willow Creek forever. I will not be a person with a day job forever. So like, what do I want to do with the now, but also like, how am I preparing to hand that off to someone else who's going to carry it? Because it's not about me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Jesse saying towards the beginning, I want this to be 100-year organization. Like I've never thought that about, any of the places that I've worked, and it's such an important context because I think about me, how long am I going to be here? 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Totally.
And then I'm going to move on and, but even in a church context, you think of like, man, how many churches like have been around for such a long time, and how often do I think about how those leaders, with a church that started in 1920, shaped the direction of where
Absolutely.
it is today in 2025.
Absolutely.
And just the importance of thinking so much farther beyond your life cycle within an organization, and the difference that can make as you're getting ready to pass the baton, or thinking about, I may pass this baton in 5 years, 10 years. What are the things that I need to do now to set not only just that person up really well for success, but the person beyond after them, and
100%.
I've had some conversations with churches that have kind of like thought about this in a really cool way, where they're maybe taking on a capital campaign or a big building renovation or something like that, and the leadership is very intentional in saying like, we're doing this so that the next generation doesn't have to do it. Like we're kind of in a certain place of maturity and resources in like this generation. And so we want to knock all this stuff out so that when the next generation comes in, they're able to run on this foundation and they're not having to deal with like the boilers going bad or like whatever the thing happens to be, which again, I think just models that long-term vision really cool way.
The thing I love about the 100-year piece, and it's what you alluded to as well, is by definition, the human lifespan says, I can't take it there.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, like, what are other goals that we're setting intentionally that we can't do ourselves, that we have to hand to someone else, that automatically reinforces this sense of, okay, I have to think longer term. I have to think generationally. I have to think about who are those younger leaders that I'm training up and developing. There's this prayer. So it's kind of a poem prayer that is from the Catholic tradition. There was a client that we served a few years ago that introduced us to it, and it's called, the kind of familiar name of it is the Romero Prayer, but it's also called Prophets of a Future Not Our Own. And I don't have it memorized, but the focus of it is basically, we can't do everything. As one ministry, as one person, as one generation, like we're just entrusted to hold this little piece. It's from the biblical idea of some plant and some water and some reap, and yet I think we kind of forget that. Like we kind of think, well, if there's enough of us right now that we can do it. And I love that language that they use. They say, no. We are prophets of a future that's not our own. And our job is just to steward the little part of the story that's ours and to play our little role in this long arc. And I think, you called it out. I think Jesse has that mindset. My hope is that I have that mindset, that we have that mindset. And that, not to make more of ourselves than we are, but that not just inspires, but even liberates other leaders, frees them, gives them the permission to think that way and go, oh wait, I don't have to do everything. Yeah. My hope is just to do the little thing I've been entrusted with and do it well.
Well, as you were saying that, the thing that came to my mind is like freedom, because you were just using the example of like, oh, if there's enough of us, we can arrive, or we can succeed, or if we work hard enough, we grind hard enough, we can like, and well, the first thing I thought of when you were saying that was like, well, what is it? Like, how do you know when you've achieved, like, what have you arrived at? What's the finish line? Like in the kind of work that we're talking about, there inherently is no end. There's no finish line, right?
Totally. So
I think if you behave as if there is, you will only burn yourself out, because you're living in you're acting in a way that's not congruent with reality. So that's always going to be like stretching you in an unhealthy way, and burnout, frustration, disappointment.
Totally.
Like feeling like you're not good enough because you haven't achieved this sort of mystical thing that actually doesn't exist and you'll never achieve. So as you're describing that, I just think how freeing to just be like, I'm going to do the best that I can with what's entrusted to me, and like that's okay.
I'm going to give myself the runway to have raised up other leaders to hand this to. I love that language of the finish line, because it flips it from, okay, there's a finish line that I can get this thing to, but it's actually always beyond my reach. And instead flipping it to no, I'm never going to reach that finish line. So what I need to do, it's a relay race. I need to be holding this baton, and I need to get that other runner running alongside me at pace. And then I need to hand the baton to them and then set them free. And then I've run my race.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's a cool picture.
The closest thing I could ever, think of to that affects all of us, is family and generations, and the generations that you think of.
It's exactly that.
Above you, and grandparents and great grandparents and great great grandparents, and how those people, whether they were intentional or not, affected me in my generation and my children and my children's children one day. And just the importance of thinking that in other areas of our lives, other than just, I want to make sure my kids don't grow up to be criminals.
I mean, that's good. That's also good.
That's pretty much what I'm doing.
Hey, one step at a time, Kaleb.
That's right.
That's
right.
One,
Yeah, that's good.
okay, that's really, really good. I want to kind of shift a little bit then, Tony, and talk about some of the things that you guys are working on at Ox right now, because I think some of the things that you're moving through and working through and defining for your organization will be really enlightening and transferable to other organizations. So you guys recently went through a process of sort of a self-evaluation.
Yeah.
Who are we? What are the things that we're going to be pursuing for the next, let's see, 85 years of our 100 years?
Yeah.
I'm not good at math.
Think about the
but-
progress bar. It's like 15%
right,
loaded, and 85%
right?
to go.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah. So how are we going to spend that next season?
Totally.
So I think it'll be interesting to hear a little bit of, what did you guys decide was that direction? But I think actually what you all decided is less important than the process you went through to get there. As the people listening are in roles in their context where they also are involved in defining what their organization's about, what their team's for, what's their culture, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about it. And so, we just completed a brand process to clarify and reestablish our brand as an organization. But that's something that we do for organizations, for churches, for for-profits, nonprofits. And what kind of the catalyst was, we had really evolved and developed our brand process pretty significantly since we last did that work for ourselves. And it's kind of always that like cobbler's kids have no shoes situation, where I was watching the clarity that we were bringing to other organizations and then going like, gosh, why don't we have that?
That's really good.
We were onboarding new people to our team. And it was interesting. There was an organization we had just led through kind of like the latest, greatest version of our brand process. And I got to participate in onboarding their team to the brand process. And then we had some new team members join our team, and we needed to onboard them to our brand. And I pulled out our brand guide as it existed and this new brand guide that we had created. And I was like, I'm jealous of what our clients have. Like, we got to carve out some time. So went through a process that took about 6 months. I think what we found is being, normally when we take a client through that, it's a 3-4 month process. We found when we did it for ourselves, we like got lost in our own heads a little bit and had to give ourselves time to process. So, and having been on church teams, I'm like, I totally get how that works when you're working through something internally. It's nice to have like someone from the outside come in and nudge you along a little bit. But essentially the process starts with getting, I love the way that you said it, really foundational clarity on who we are on a fundamental level. We often talk about brands like an iceberg, and the idea there being that most of what a brand is underneath the surface of the water. Audiences never actually see it. When we think brand, we think of the stuff we see, logos and color palettes and names and those types of things. But the brand is actually what people feel and think when they think about us. And the work that we did was to develop a strategy on how do we help shape that on purpose? What do we want people to think about and feel when they think about us? And for us, the clarity was really, we're a creative agency, but we want to be focused on giving our clients an outsized return on their investment. And ultimately, the through line, every one of our clients is trying to move people to action in one way or another. And we want to let them know that when they partner with us, it's not about hey, the creative is going to be so cool or it's going to be so beautiful. It will be those things. It needs to be those things. That's kind of like minimum viable product. But more than that, it's going to be tailored to what audiences actually care about, so that when people experience the creative work that we create together, they go and do something that they wouldn't have done otherwise. And basically the core idea of our identity is we want to be people who multiply good through moving people to action. And that was kind of something we'd been loosely talking about for a long time, but then going through this process just like really crystallized it. And so essentially we led ourselves through the same process we lead clients through. And it starts with, again, asking fundamental questions about who are we at the deepest levels? How do people perceive us today? How do people misunderstand us today? And then probably the thing that I would talk about that I think is most relevant is then going beyond that to go, so how will we talk about ourselves in a way that's not only clear, but distinctive? And I highlight that because we do brand work with a lot of churches. And what I often find is that churches settle for clarity, but don't go the extra step to get to distinctiveness. And the analogy that I use a lot is, it's sort of like, imagine, since we were talking about stores in the mall, it's like you're walking through the mall and imagine that every store is completely clear about what it offers. And so it has signage in the window that says, we sell clothes. You walk past one store. We sell clothes on the right. We sell clothes on the left. We sell clothes. And you walk down and they're totally clear. That is what they sell. But it's not distinctive. That's not the experience that you have when you walk through a mall. The experience you actually have is that you're getting all sorts of information about what kind of clothes and who are they for and what kind of price point and who will I be if I wear your clothes.
Yeah.
And that's what branding and marketing can be really effective at. Now, sometimes, just like any tool, that can be used to essentially spin a narrative, to create a lie, to put up a facade. But it can also be, I think, a tool of service. And I think for a lot of churches, because we have this common mission of go and make disciples, we think as long as we're saying, we're here to go and make disciples, or maybe we go, great command, we're here to love God and love people. It's clear, it's really clear. But if I am a person looking for a community to belong to in whatever city I'm a part of, how would I know whether I'm a right fit for you and you're a right fit for me? And I think we get uncomfortable with that because we say we want to be for everybody. And there's a difference between being inclusive and welcoming of all people. Everyone can find a place here. But then also I think there's an act of service in going, but let me be distinct and clear about the distinction. Like who might be a great fit for us, or maybe said better, just who are we inherently, so that you can make your own wise decisions about whether you're a fit or not. So again, we went through that process. Similar, we looked at a whole bunch of other creative agencies. So when we think about a client, who are we a great fit for? What can we uniquely offer? What don't we uniquely offer? Got really clear about that. And then that's all the beneath the surface of the ice, beneath the surface of the water stuff. Then we started thinking about cool, maybe we should adjust our logo. But we were probably 4.5 months into a 6-month process before we started thinking at all about logos or color palettes or words or any of that stuff. It was all about fundamentally, who are we here to serve? What value can we actually bring?
Yeah.
And how often do churches jump
To the
straight
logo.
to the logo?
Totally.
And color
When they
palettes?
say we're doing a brand refresh,
And
that's all it means.
And that's all
Totally.
it means. We're going to buy some new pens. We're going to buy some new
Totally.
rugs that say our name with a new fancy logo on it. And that's all it means to them.
Totally. And I think the thing, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think the thing that gets missed there is so often I've seen when we're guiding clients through a brand process, or other agencies guiding clients through a brand process, you just get to answers that you never would have thought of if you didn't answer those more fundamental questions. Because when you start to get at, on a deep level, who are we and what's our personality and what are we like, it pulls you off the edge of just trend chasing. Just going cool, I'm just constantly scrolling Instagram, scrolling Pinterest, on TikTok, trying to figure out what's cool. And if the only thing that I'm trying to answer through a brand process is what's cool, number one, I'm always following, I'm never leading. Number two, how could I possibly be authentic if I'm only asking what's out there that I can mirror or replicate? And I think it's, it kind of overlaps with what we said before about what you brought up about names and reflections. I think God has called expressions of his local body uniquely to be unique parts of that body within a city or within a context. And so if all we're ever asking is what's cool, what's out there, how do we be relevant, how do we be on trend, we're missing the opportunity to go hey, actually God has given us this name and given us this role to play and given us this identity, and this is who we uniquely are. And we talk a lot at Ox about the idea of human brands. We use that language in contrast to corporate brands. And I think a corporate brand is always just chasing what's cool.
Sure.
But a human brand is authentic and is who they uniquely are. Again, just like a person is. So we can go deeper into that if it's helpful. But yeah, I think the core of it is exactly what you said. If you just start with, hey, our logo looks a little dated. How do we make it cooler? In 5 years, you'll be doing the same thing, and you're missing the opportunity to be who you uniquely are and build a deep, lasting connection with your audience.
Yeah, I think the thing that you said about the iceberg is really interesting, because how many times, and then you also were mentioning too how the branding or marketing can sometimes end up being deceptive.
Yeah.
Because what happens, it kind of aligns with the iceberg thing, is the tip of the iceberg, you can have a certain image, but the experience of someone who, when they get under the surface or into the community or whatever, is different.
Totally.
So part of the brand process being maybe you do refresh your logo and it looks really cool in a way that speaks towards a felt need of the people around you, and they're like, hey, I want to participate in that. Well, that's awesome. But what will they actually experience when they engage or come to your church or participate in your
100%.
community? And Like, I just think defining the culture, like what are the distinctives of our culture, can't be overstated in that
100%.
exercise.
100%. We say often that a brand isn't what you say about you. That's another reason that it's not a logo, it's not a color palette, it's not a name, it's not a tagline, that's not your brand. Those are artifacts of your brand, and there maybe are attempts to shape the brand, but the brand itself is like just out of our reach. We can't like reach and move and grab it.
I love that.
It's what people say about us. It's what people think about us. It's what people feel when they experience us. And so what you said is 100% right. It can be shaped by words that we say or visuals that we show, but the lion's share of what will shape that perception is exactly what you said, what people experience from us over time.
Dude, that's so, I love that so much. Like, to kind of restate, we actually have very little control over the brand.
Yeah.
We have behaviors that we can do to try to
spot on. Yeah.
Offer an experience, but the actual brand is not in our control.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, not at all how it's often perceived.
That's spot on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, 1,000%, because and I don't think churches view that as that. I don't think most organizations view it that way. I think that they look at it as, I'm going to shape this brand and culture and all of this stuff, but the perception of how it is to everybody else around you, the clients, the people that attend the church, but whatever that looks like, depending on your context, you have very little ability to shape that other than what are the actions that we can do to the end user, or to help curate that experience as much as
it's a risk, right? Because you don't have control of the outcome. You can do things that might have a positive influence, or that you think are actually, honestly, maybe to restate it, you can do things that you know are right. Like, I can do the right, correct, ethical, whatever, the things that are in line with my values, but I actually don't have control of the outcome of what that generates necessarily.
I think it's exactly that. There are definitely things that we can do to shape and steward a brand, but I think it's helpful to be reminded. It's what you said. Church throws a new logo up on their website and they're like, cool, we've like leveled up our brand. And maybe that's true, but also, like, is the story you're telling with your visuals, is the story you're telling with your messaging, does it line up with the experience that people have when they walk through your doors? Does it line up with how long it takes them to get an email back from one of your staff members? And the great brands are the ones who, over months and years and decades, have cultivated that positive relationship, so that when you think of your favorite brand, the name pops into your mind and there's like a feeling that comes. You go, oh, I love that brand. Well, why do you love them? Well, because over time they've done things to honor the relationship that I have with them. And if we think at that level, then we're going to make really smart decisions about logos and color palettes, and all that stuff matters. But when we're doing it right, those are just the hangers that we're hanging positive relational equity on. If we're doing it wrong, we're trying to trick people or bait and switch or mislead, and that's where it gets really funky. So,
well, it becomes that, like, you think about it in sort of like a physical health type context as an analogy, right?
Yeah.
There's the things that you can do to mask symptoms, and that's maybe the logo or the refresh, and there's the long-term practices you can do to actually resolve root issues.
So good.
And it's not to say that you shouldn't have both.
Right.
But they have to work in tandem, and they have to both be present for the best possible outcome over long periods of time to come to fruition.
Yeah.
100%.
That's why, websites like Glassdoor exist, because as you're getting ready or exploring a new opportunity at another organization, I like to look at those, and it gives you a lot of context. Both, it's like an Amazon review, man. It's like, how often do we buy anything on Amazon without looking at the reviews? I never, ever am buying some random thing without going, well, what are people actually saying about that? And
Absolutely.
So taking that context, and whether you're the organization reading feedback that employees or other people are giving you.
Absolutely.
And going, oh, this is actually, like, we at the leadership table think, this is amazing. All of our staff love us and all.
Well, that makes me think of one of the things you said that was part of your brand exercise, was actually looking at the things that weren't going well from clients. Like, I think you said maybe, like, what are the things that clients are confused about, or how, like things about us that we don't like that clients say, or experiences they've had.
Definitely.
And, like, how important being honest about the things that have room to grow in is as part of this overall process. I mean, it's not just defining who we are in the positive. Like, we are these, like, that's all good. But, like, hey, we also are these things that maybe we have aspirational goals to be not anymore.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a necessity to look in the mirror. And, in a marketing context, we talk about the reviews you're talking about is social proof is sort of the language that gets used. And it's critical for any organization because people, I think this has always been true, but it's expressing itself in this sort of universal, global, digital world that we live in. At the end of the day, people just want to know, like, give me the real deal. What's the real story? When I walk in the building, when I go experience it, when I buy the product, like, what's it really like? Yeah. And I think that it's scary, to your point, Kaleb, it's scary to get that data about yourself, scary to get it about yourself as a leader, scary to get it about yourself as a brand. Mm-hmm. More and more, I've been challenging myself to get more present to it, reminding myself, like, whether I know it or not, it exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the question, like, if I'm having a bad hair day, do I want to look in the mirror and fix it? Or do I want to walk around where everybody else can see it except me? And so, yeah, trying to get present to, like, where aren't we doing a good job? Either in terms of we're not communicating accurately about ourselves, or we're not living up to our brand promises. We're not living out our values.
Right. Yeah. That's really good, man.
That is really good.
We talk about that a lot. There's a lot of richness there. To kind of hone in a little bit then, as you're thinking, you've gone through this process of defining some of these things, and there will be, I'm sure, lots of ramifications within the organization and different roles as living that out, right? But as you think about things from your seat and you look at the next season at Ox, like, what are the challenges that you're wrestling through? What are what's the hill that you're working to take? And I don't know, lessons that you're learning as you look ahead, kind of jumping off of that foundation you've created and looking at what's next?
I think we're probably navigating the challenges that a lot of organizations of our size and our life stage are navigating. But to put a little definition around that, if I could boil it down to one word, both in terms of the value that we're wanting to increasingly offer to clients and the job to be done within the organization, it's all about simply the word multiply. And when I think about that from a client perspective, what we hope to bring to our clients, it's we don't just want to add value. A lot of organizations talk about adding value. When we look out at the world, the problems that we face as a world, the division, the discord, the inequality and access to things that just every person on the planet deserves and needs, we're like, we can't solve this by addition. And so our sense really is, if a client chooses to invest $1 or €1 or £1 with us, and we give them back $1 or €1 or £1 or even $2, €2, £2, like, we're not moving fast enough. We're not moving aggressively enough. And so we really want to get to creative solutions that truly multiply whatever investment a client makes with us, and just being kind of eyes wide open and matter of fact about the fact that there's a resource reality to this. And when a client, again, chooses to trust us, we gotta steward that. We gotta do something great with that. And so all of our processes, all of our offerings, they're all focused on, great, how could we optimize this to give a multiplied return, to give a multiplied result? So some of that is based on improving processes like we did with our brand process. Some of it's about building research offerings or partnerships in to give a better result based on clearer insights, but it's all focused on that multiply idea. So that's the external side, what we're focused on. How do we give a multiplied result to our clients? And then the internal side is similarly, we're in this stage where there are a lot of folks who have been on the team. There's a core group of folks that have been on the team for 7, 8, 9 years. And there's this rich institutional knowledge that's built up in the heads of those folks. And that's beautiful. And it's also a massive problem because, and I'll put myself in this camp, there's a lot that we know, but we don't know what we know anymore. Like, we can no longer see it. We're completely blind. We're like so deep in the water, we can't tell what's water anymore, right? And then there's a new group of incredible, young, talented leaders that have come in and joined the team. But like anyone, their capability to make an impact is going to be limited by the things that are locked up in the heads of the old fogies who don't know what they need to know, don't know how to train, don't know how to tell them. And we've got this mission to do, and we're trying to multiply these things for our clients. And so I think similar to a ministry context, like for us, it's not Sunday that's coming, but like Monday's coming or the deadline's coming. Like we feel that too. And so we feel that, okay, how do we keep the mission moving forward, but then also create good onboarding processes, great communication in and amongst those groups of people, so they actually benefit each other rather than just getting siloed or disconnected. And the way that we're seeking to multiply is all about, I read a book probably 4 or 5 years ago called The Power of Giving Away Power. and just totally transformed the way I thought about leadership. He talks in the book about the difference between pyramid thinking and constellation thinking, and essentially defines constellation thinking as independent bodies, but that are interconnected and choosing to function collaboratively. And so I've just started thinking about our team that way. How do I see myself just as like a star in a constellation, and see, a project manager who's phenomenal, who's been on the team for 6 months, as another star in that constellation with all the potential in the world. And every member of our team, every collaborator we work with, every client is part of that constellation. And trying to think through that lens instead of like, let me train you or onboard you, let me give you like the rules of the road. There's some of that that's inevitably needed. We need to bring clarity to things. But I've tried to think about like, okay, how do we, and I work with our COO, Olivia Ludwig, who's phenomenal, on this. We work on how do we standardize things? In other words, how do we make them consistent? How do we simplify things so it's easy for people to get their heads around? Maybe they don't need as much they don't need to hear all the war stories from me over the last 9 years. It's standard, it's simple, and then how do we empower people? And so internally, that's how we're thinking about how do we multiply ourselves? How do we replicate and give more people more ability to make a bigger impact? And then how do we take that to our clients and help them to multiply the good that they're trying to do?
Mm.
That's awesome. I think there's so much that all organizations can learn from some of the things that you're describing, but I think churches specifically, even a little while ago when you're talking about chasing trends and all that stuff, it's like we're chasing trends that are already old as well. And what's the time? Could be anywhere from 5 to 10 years behind sometimes in what creativity looks like. And so taking a look back at your organization and going, hey, who are we and how can we, like the distinctive of who we are and what makes us unique in the exact same way that God made every single one of us unique as a human, and going, this is who I am as a person, and to be able to take that into how can we multiply that within our staff, our volunteers at the church, into who are the people that we're trying to reach and what is the ultimate goal, rather than just getting their butt in the seat on a Sunday morning that we can count,
Absolutely.
So I think that's fantastic, man. I love all of that, and I think so many churches and other organizations needs to do more of that.
Well, the constellation metaphor is really interesting because that, like you said, there is always inevitably certain amounts of like administration and like sort of process and things that has to happen.
Absolutely.
And the question is not do they happen, but the question is like, if you're an organization and you have to sort of err in one way or the other, or sort of lean, when you have to solve a problem, like maybe here's the way to phrase it. When you come up against a problem, do you lean into people's like creativity and sort of innovation, or do you lean into a process and like a whatever? Different problems require like,
absolutely.
There are times when the problem does require a clear, defined, predetermined process. There's also times when the problem requires outside the box thinking and inviting people maybe that haven't worked on it before to work on it as fresh eyes or whatever. And so like having the muscles to do those things in the right context and not allowing yourself to be siloed into a response, but actually discerning what is the right muscle to flex in this given scenario. I don't know. I'm just kind of
that's spot on. Yeah, I think that like our brains like to, again, talking about labels and boxes, our brains, when we hear like, okay, so there's pyramids and constellations have positives, so that must mean pyramids are bad.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, that's like overly simplifying. Yeah. It's spot on. In the book, one of the ideas that it talks about is that in a crisis, pyramid style leadership is actually really valuable. People need clear directives. Right. So you think about, you come up on a car crash scene, and what's a paramedic doing? They're not inviting perspective from everyone. They're going, you go over here, don't go there, go grab this. It's very top down, quote unquote, leadership. And gosh, thank goodness for it. And at the same time, sometimes when we function like there's a crisis, but there's not, when we let our fear get the best of us, when we become so risk averse, we miss all that could be collaborated and co-created because we're in the crisis. And I definitely experienced that in my time in ministry, that it feels like there's always a crisis. It feels like there's a disaster always waiting to happen. And there are moments of crisis, certainly. But I remember being in ministry at Willow, And I don't know if it was a Sunday morning or a Tuesday meeting or what it was, but I felt Jesus just gently reminding me, like, hey, remember, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I thought, okay, and I thought, well, this doesn't feel easy, and it sure doesn't feel light. This feels like hard and heavy. And I felt him gently saying to me, like, okay, so whose burden are you carrying? Like, whose yoke are you wearing right now? And I was like, I'm like wearing, I could probably, there's a ton of answers to that question, but I think the point is like, not yours, apparently. And so I think that to me, that feels like there's the invitation in that, like, okay, is this a crisis? Is this truly a crisis moment where I need to bring clear directive, top-down leadership for the sake of the group? Or would the group actually benefit from an invitation to co-create and collaborate? Because this isn't a crisis right now. It's just an opportunity.
And what a great sort of way to kind of put language around the role of a leader. Like the role of a leader is oftentimes to lower the temperature,
Absolutely.
right? To dissipate the crisis, to correctly discern, hey, everyone's running around, but guys, like this isn't a crisis, so let's approach it in the right way. Or vice versa, to identify the probably fewer than you think times when it is a crisis.
Yeah. But
like knowing the difference and being able to sort of manage people's frenetic energy that might be spinning up.
Yeah, there's a coach that, a group of coaches we work with, and they focus their work specifically on the role of anxiety within teams and systems. And they don't mean sort of like the emotional experience of anxiety, but they mean when you kind of get into fight or flight, whether you're aware of it or not, and you sense that there's a crisis, you sense that there's imminent danger, and anxiety spikes, and you start doing things that anxious people do. And they have this phrase that's kind of brutal, but I love, where they say the reality is like anxiety makes us stupid. And I just think about how many times I, as a leader, or teams that I'm a part of, organizations I've been a part of, we're like running around anxious. And if that's true, then it's like you got a bunch of stupid people running around who could be such smart people if we could just take a breath,
So good.
slow it down, and imagine the solutions we would come up with. So yeah, it's a good
the
challenge.
Longevity you might have, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Like anxious people also burn out.
Totally.
Like you can only sustain that emotional RPM for
100%.
so long.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
man,
I think so. Like just to kind of maybe put a capstone on it, I think your word about whose yoke are you carrying?
Yeah.
What burden is on your shoulders? Like, I think that's such a word for all of us to reflect on. And if you feel yourself in a scenario where the burden does not feel light and the yoke does not feel easy, to just view that as a flag to just do some work, right? Like just ask some questions, do some work, get some advice. Because if Jesus says that's not my experience for you, then what realignment might be available to you to again have longevity and lower that RPM and have an existence that's a blessing to you and the people around you.
Yeah.
Good word.
That's good, man. Dude, thanks for having this conversation, for sitting around the table and talking about this stuff, because I think it's so important and has sparked so many thoughts of mine of, man, how many times that I do those exact same things in ministry? How many times do I still do those things today? And when do I need to pause and stop and reevaluate a little bit of the longevity of what happens 100 years from now within this quote unquote crisis that I'm in, whatever that is, and to keep that far, distance of generations beyond me in mind, whether it's in my family context or my organization that I work for, and what that looks like to set them up well. So I'm I think this is amazing, and it's been awesome to have this conversation and meet you for the first time and do all of that together, man.
Yeah.
So fun. Humbled to be on with you guys. Thank you.
If people are interested in the work that you guys do at Ox, or like have questions, or are asking their own brand process questions, like what could they do? What's next?
Yeah, you can check us out. Our website is oxcreates.com, or you can just send me an email, Tony, Tony, @oxcreates.com. Would love to chat. And to everyone who's listening, especially those in ministry context, again, like I know that churn. I know what it's like, and just I think want to say to you guys on behalf of those people, like just thanks for what you're doing and for building the kingdom in your context. I'm grateful for it. So
that's awesome, man.
Thank you.
We'll throw that info in the show notes so you guys can click and jump into a conversation with these guys if that's helpful for you.
Great.
But for those of you all listening, we will see you all next week.